21 years ago, Walt Disney Animation ventured into Jules Verne-like territory with Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Now they've returned to this brand of adventure with their newest release, Strange World, opening in theaters this week. The film is directed by Don Hall, a longtime story artist at Disney who got his first credit on Tarzan. He then got the opportunity to direct Winnie the Pooh in 2011, and since then has also served as a director on Big Hero 6 and Raya and the Last Dragon. He definitely deserves plenty of credit for the impressive winning streak Disney Animation has had since the late 2000s. I've greatly enjoyed everything the studio has produced over the past 14 years. I mention all of this because, unfortunately, I found myself a tad underwhelmed with Strange World. I did think the movie started off really strongly in the beginning. Hall sets the tone well with a comic book opening clearly inspired by classic pulp adventures, complete with a fun song that nicely introduces the father-son duo of Jaeger and Searcher Clade. The film does a good job of showing this fantasy world the characters live in that does come across as fairly unique, and I also like the family dynamic shown between Searcher and his own son Ethan. Additionally, the story depicts Ethan having a crush on a teenage boy, and I thought that was very nicely portrayed. When the characters go off to the titular Strange World, there's certainly that classic science fiction feel with all kinds of imaginative creatures. The Disney artists and animators did a beautiful job of bringing this world to life, which has a heavy emphasis on colors like pink and blue that allow it to stand out. I also want to compliment the character designs. They go for a slightly different look than we're accustomed to seeing from a Disney animated film, which I applaud. The eyes are different and the characters are more elastic, so it absolutely does not look like they just recycled models from Encanto. There's a lot of inventive animation with a blobby creature named Splat, although one character does say out loud how merchandisable it is. Subtle. Hall clearly wanted to give Strange World its own unique appearance, and he succeeded. When Ethan and Searcher go exploring this world, the filmmakers seem to go more for vibes. There are hints about something potentially sinister going on, but it seemed like they mostly wanted to just let the audience absorb the locale. Meanwhile, when Searcher and Jaeger reunite, these events become sort of like a therapy session for them. There's a lot of discussion about the strains of their father-son relationship and differing ideologies that initially drove them apart, and it is good to see these characters try to talk out their frustrations with each other. However, as all the conflicts started to pile up, my interest in the narrative eventually waned. The main story involves the characters trying to resolve what's going on with the plant that fuels their world, and as the action ramped up, I realized I wasn't that invested in this as much as the father-son relationships. The film attempts to juggle all these various characters along with this storyline, and that did affect the film's flow. In addition to the 3 generations of Clades, there's also Searcher's wife Meridian becoming a ship pilot and the leader of this exploration crew with her own mission goals. The third act is when the movie just became noise for me, as we get a loud series of action sequences, and I actually felt myself checking out at this point. I did appreciate one of the main messages about the pressures parents can sometimes put on their children to follow in their footsteps. However, by the end, I realized I was not that emotionally invested in these characters or the big world-changing event they're trying to resolve. The ingredients are certainly there to get the film to a satisfying conclusion, but it just did not stick the landing for me in the end, and I feel the third act needed another polish, or at least wasn't throwing so much at you with the constant action. However, maybe several years from now I will revisit Strange World and better appreciate it. That's what happened to me with Treasure Planet, a film I was initially mixed on, but has since grown on me in the years since. This absolutely feels like a Disney animated film in the vein of Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and so it's very likely to gain a following. This is the 61st movie produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios. When you make that many films, they're not all going to click with you, and that's okay. I absolutely have not lost faith in the studio's ability to make a great movie. Last year they released Raya and the Last Dragon and Encanto, both of which I liked a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of The Black Cauldron, but Disney then followed it up with The Great Mouse Detective, which I have a huge fondness for. Too many people sound the alarm bells when a filmmaker or animation studio makes a movie that underwhelms them, and they then become worried about their future output, and I find that so unnecessary. Strange World lands as an okay for me, and that's not a bad place to be. It has a lot of imagination and solid character moments like I mentioned at the start of the review. It's mostly the third act I have issues with. Regardless, I'm very excited for where Disney Animation and director Don Hall take us next.